that people can hear me through my. How do I share this thing? Dashboard pop up, edit. Nah, nah, nah. Like, how do I actually send this thing? There's a boom, boom, boom. Uh-huh. Try join my life if you need help as I talk through it. Think that might help. Okay. Hey, what's up, people? My name's Jerome, and those of you who know me know I've been doing quite a lot of stuff related to business and business for artists. I've been thinking hard and long for many, many years of how to take all put them in a one place. And it's so hard, I think, when you're creative because you're doing multiple different things. Um, my wife's always telling me to stop picking up things, but I find it so hard not to help people. That's my default. Like my default is if you have a problem, I probably know something that could help you solve the problem, and that's something that I've leaned on my whole life. So if we can, I always say, if you can see the problem, it means you actually can solve it. But getting people in the mindset where they can actually go, boom, boom, how do I solve it? That's kind of where I sit. So I'm gonna share some things while I'm doing my laundry. I don't know if I move. I don't know if can you guys still hear me? Is it still going on? Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna just look at where I've gone over here. So one of the things that we're talking about here is how to find your money lane. Now, firstly and foremost, it's I believe in building from profit. In fact, I might actually close the blinds here so that you can see me better. Here we. So I believe in building from purpose, and most people go, "What do you mean?" I mean something very simple. Like my purpose is to empower creatives or others to realize their full potential. It's something I've been working on for many, many, many years, whether it's been on the track or been in, in the creative space or in the executive space. My goal with my company and with myself as an individual is how do I bring out the best in others. It started off from a statement my father had made when I was a kid. Um, he said to me, to love someone is to see the good in them and to help bring it out. And that stuck. It's one of those things where when somebody says something like that, you're like, yeah, that's a really nice definition. I like that a lot. It makes sense. And I've stuck with that. So I always try and see the good in people, and then try and bring that out. It's funny how the people that I struggle to see the good in sometimes are people closest to me. My poor wife probably has to put up with me a lot more, going, "Oh, come on." And I know she loves me, but in the moment, sometimes I get it wrong. So this isn't me playing saint. This is me just being real. So why is a money lane, or what streams of income? When you think about your creativity, as I said, if mine's to help people, I think about which are the people that need the most help and who I can serve. That's where I come from, and that's how. And it was always close. So I went on a lifelong journey. What these guys are lacking in, like why, like what are they going through? Why is it so hard for people to understand business? And I started to see trend where it was just knowledge. There's a lot of talent, but very little knowledge around how that talent can monetize that talent. So I was like, okay, fine. But then how do they monetize it? Like, what's the industry saying? And you start to see trends. IP is one of the biggest money makers in the world. People understood that. And if artists understood that intellectual property, that's what IP stands for, is one of the biggest money makers in the world, they would not go, oh, my art is a hobby and, it might not make me money, so it's okay. Art means that you're generating intellectual property every time your pen touches a pad, or anytime your paintbrush strokes, you're creating some sort of intellectual property. And how you manage that intellectual property is what will then give you a stream of income. I always say, think about it like a house. When you have a house, you a house could potentially be a home for somebody else that you could rent out. It could be offices. You could go a step further. It could be a warehouse, depending on if you're doing e-commerce kind of store. It has multiple functions, but it could be a gym, but you decide. Could be a restaurant, what you want it to be. It is just a building. So when we talk about money lays and streams of income, it's with what you're creating, what could it potentially become? And that opens you up. At Underrated Individuals, we break it into like four main categories in the entertainment sector. We've got written stuff, which is like your blogs, scripts, novels, um, you know, could be articles, posts. That's one stream of income. And you go, well, articles don't you can't monetize an article. Yes, but you can utilize it in order to attract some sort of money, or to put you in a space where people go, "Oh, that's interesting." But you can monetize a magazine, and you can put articles in the magazine in order to fill it up. Okay, so that's one. Um, if you wanted to look at it again from a written space, you could write a poetry book, or you could write a novel. That's all written, and it could stem from one idea. But understanding your purpose is what the idea will grow from. So in our case, empowering artists and people, the artist business canvas is born. Why? So that we have a piece of, or a methodology, may I say, that people could utilize from a business element, because we think that's where they're coming short, and get ahead. So we produce the workbook, and we give the workbook out for free, and then we're now producing the book where people can then buy the book, and that's kind of like their guide, or the handbook to business for creatives. How long did it take me to develop that and to get to this understanding? About 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years. Or I'd say 3 years in terms of focused on the artist business canvas, but it's taken me my whole life to understand that business element. The second thing that we look at, and which has been a strong part of my first monetization of my art, is audio. Um, well, written, it's been script and things like that, which we've used for theater that cross over into live. But before I talk about live, because that's a good chunk of where a lot of people make money as artists or creators, is I want to talk about audio, because audio was my first, as I say, direct break into some sort of capital. Audio means songs, podcasts, which is what we kind of heavily leaning on right now. So you've got a lot of audio podcasts going out with different entities as well. We're helping a lot of the groups we're working with, including King's College London, develop their own podcasts, and that is a revenue stream, that audio stream. So yeah, you know, people overlook that, and someone go, "Oh yeah, but radio shows as well. That's another audio space to be in." So when we talk about these things, it's like, okay, cool, you can make money from that. Someone said to me, "Oh, but I'm a translator. I can't make money in the creative space." And I'm like, "Wow, what you translating like English to German?" And I was like, "Okay, what stuff are you interested in?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm really passionate about." I can't remember. It was something to do with it was like football or something. It was a sport. And I was like, "Okay, cool. Why don't you find the content in English that you like and just translate it, or speak to the video person that's making it and just translate?" And that's a stream of income. You could negotiate something. They're like, "Oh, okay." So again, you have options, but you block yourself in. Yeah, my wife's probably gonna come in and be like, "What's going on? Why is the laundry not actually being folded?" She usually does this, very used to her. Most of you who know my wife, her name's Namvola, and she's a singer-songwriter, and she also focuses on audio. Audio is one of her main streams of income. I would say it's her main, I'd say it's one of, because yeah, she's done really well on Spotify with some remixes with her friends. But yeah, her mainstream is music. She's a songwriter. So yeah, that's audio. Then third part, I think people are actually trying to come into this. Let's see. Yep, yep. So the next thing that I'm gonna talk about. So we've gone from written to audio, um, and then we got video before we go to live. Live's my baby. I love live, so I'm keeping live for last. Which was the first thing that I ever participated in. I didn't make money from it straight away. I just I got involved in it. It was the first thing I got involved in the creative space. And what actually took place, and this is me talking about money lanes, by the way, it's me talking about streams of income. What actually happened was with video, I came to England when Zim was in a bad place, my dad, and then managed to get some sort of funds and send my sister and I to England. And while I was out here, I said to my dad and them, I want to study theater, which is, as I said, live, my one of my first loves. My dad and them were like, no, that's not a job, son. It's the African thing. I was like, no, but no, I really like, I can see myself doing really well. And they're like, no, that's not going to happen. So my cousin said to me, why don't you tell them you're going to study media? I was like, rah. So when I was enrolling, there's a media course, TV and film. And bam, I signed up. And before I know it, I was on a media course. And I said to my mom, yeah, no, I'm going to study media. And my aunt was like, oh, media is what, kids who don't know what they want to do in life do. I didn't know this was going to be a blessing in disguise because the way my brain works, actually, media was the right choice and the right option. It opened me up to the bigger world of entertainment that I wanted to be a part of without me even realizing, because I was heavily focused on Broadway, West End, and theater. Theater was my going to be my bread and butter. That's what I thought. So let's go into video. Studied TV and film, and as it says, you could do a video podcast. That's again a form of video that can make you money. You could do trailers for people, like editing, if you can edit, or you could shoot trailers, or you could shoot adverts. Um, all of this streams of income, you could shoot it, like you could film events. When shooting, I mean, yeah. You could film events, you could, yeah, you could film, TV, film, short films, and someone will say, well, how do short films make money? You could get somebody else to pay for it up front. For example, if you're talking about mental health, you could speak to a mental health institution and get them to fund the production. And that might not make you revenue straight away, but it will help you gain some leverage within the industry, and you become a filmmaker by you just taking the first step into it. And then from there, people might either work with you and pay you. Like someone might have a script and they'll be like, oh, can you develop it for me? They might be able to get income, or money together to pay you as a director or as a development person, producer, you know. So again, that's kind of more the film slash video world. You could film weddings, as I said, because I said events. So there's multiple options in that space as well. With underrated individuals, we've done a video podcast, we shot a couple of short films, and it's opened up the door for us to be able to engage with people outside of that space as well. So when it comes to video content, we're putting stuff up online in order to monetize our YouTube channels and um, create partnerships with people. So we're using it as a positioning tool right now, but we know it's going to monetize in the near future as we're working on TV series and hopefully like live shows that will be filmed, so they'll also translate into video spaces as well. As you're seeing, there's a trend of a money lane, or maybe say, as they say, stream of income, them kind of crossing pathing, and that's something that I think is something people should take into consideration. Is that and it's not a bad thing. It's a how these things work for you. Okay, and the last one is life. Why did I leave life for last? As I said, this is my first love. I ended up in theater when I was 5 years old. I think was the first time I kind of participated in a play, and by the age of 6, I was doing a lot of big public plays in Zimbabwe. It was amateur theater, so I wasn't getting paid for it, but I could see that there was definitely revenue that could be created when I look back now from it. Example is if you actually own the show that you're creating, let's just call it a children's musical, you you could really coin it in terms of the characters, you know, um, you could you could definitely gain some sort of a good following from it, where people are like, actually, yeah, we like this thing. But again, it's like Alice in Wonderland, Winnie the Pooh. Those are the things I acted in, but I could see that there was room for some original content. Um, and children's content just really kind of, for me, I think rings home. Moving into into a better space from the life space, if I were to really, really dissect it and look at it, I would say you've got music, so gigs, festivals, live shows, you know, that that is a really good stream of income for a lot of musicians. In fact, a lot of musicians make more money down that route than they actually do from streams, like online streams. So my advice would be when you're thinking about live, you could do a live podcast, live talks. You could be doing talks if depending on your industry, you could become a thought leader in your industry and do talks like TEDx's or whatever it is along those lines. But all of that class is live. Um, you could run workshops. My wife does that. As I said, she earns a decent amount of her living from actually putting together workshops. And you know, these are only ideas, people. And I'm saying those are the four kind of spaces that I look at when I'm dealing with companies is how do they fit into these spaces and where do the opportunities lie? People will go, oh, that's only creative spaces. Not really. It actually overlaps even into service spaces. Is how you communicate and how you deliver your service. You know, if, if you are, let's just say, working in clinical trials in the medical field, you you're then going to a lab, but then you still need to get people into the lab in order for the clinical trials. Understanding how the money moves, that's a whole other lane. But your money lane in that sector might be a simple communication space where you're saying, look, I can get 10 people to come in for this clinical trial for so much. And that's a live kind of setup. It's bringing an audience to an opportunity. um, So that's kind of like, yeah, and that's kind of me just breaking it down very, very, very simply what money lanes and streams of income look like when you're working with underrated individuals. Um, as I said, welcome to underrated to unstoppable. I know I haven't really given you too much about the challenge that we've set over the next couple of months, but the whole idea of underrated to unstoppable is to gift people with as much information as possible to help them cross that line and guidance as well. I trying to deliver it for free pretty much. So I'm gonna be pushing this as much as I can and doing as many lives as I can to just share as much information as I can. So people who are watching this back, hit us up, drop comments, and we'll take it from there. And why this is on my personal, because this is my home kind of chilling life. I'm not doing the lives on the underrated individuals pages yet because I would like us to have a certain structure and to keep it professional for my company. But yeah, for my personal pages, I'm like, I can share a lot of this information without it actually being, you know. So that's money lanes. The mistakes I make so you don't make. Ooh. If I'm honest with you, I started without actually getting to understand business. My father and them, I've been My father's run a couple of companies and been director in a couple of companies and partner, but these are like very mechanical service based industries. Um, and he's an engineer, and he what he brings to the table is helping companies and helping people, excuse me, navigate the factories that they have. So he's worked in paint spaces and stuff, and I could never translate what he was doing into what I was trying to do. So I went into the world and I dived in, and I made a lot of mistakes. So I made music. Um, was under resourced because I was homeless when I started to actually record music. I was lucky enough to have to be out that system as I went. The first time I went into a studio, it was in a college called Abraham Moss, and I had saved up like 10 quid or 10 pounds, and that gave me an hour of recording with an engineer. And I got a beat from a friend who had heard me singing in a park, and we went into the studio. I hadn't written the song, so I tried to freestyle a lot of it, and I realized I didn't have much there, and the hour flew. And by the end of the hour, I had next to nothing. So the engineer watching this, he was like, "Dude, just come back, go write and come back." So I did that, and about a week later, I went into the studio and I put some stuff down, and that's how number one kind of was born, you know. But if I'm honest with you, that learning curve of not being prepared was a big one because I realized that the only way you can actually capitalize on an opportunity is if you're prepared for it, and I just was not prepared for it. So studio time again, make sure you have all your lyrics kind of written out, you know your melodies, you know where you want to kind of go, and then you can go and work that. Wife's here. uh no, as in, uh, I mean, I said, yeah, it's just Sunday laundry. She's like, you didn't tell me you're on live. You're lucky I didn't start undressing. Yeah. I mean, we would have done well in terms of streams. Yeah. So as I was saying, the first problem I like encountered in terms of recording was I went into the studio without knowing what I was actually trying to record, and it showed. So the engineer felt bad, gave me another chance to grow and do better. Um, and then the next mistake I made from a live element is I didn't understand how live worked. And I remember when I was working in a restaurant, one of the guys turned around and said, "Oh, hey, we're looking for live music." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I can do it." And sometimes saying yes is just great because you learn so much. So my yes turned into one strum J. So I had a little, I had like a little guitar, like cost me I think something like £5 or something. It was a cheap guitar, not tuned well, and I I strummed this thing. Bring is this feeling inside. Bring. So they made a joke about it, and they obviously didn't pay me the amount that they said they would pay because it was not great. But I realized that I had a lot of work to do for my own solo kind of performances. My guitar playing was not that great, and I couldn't play and accompany. I couldn't accompany and sing, basically accompany myself and sing. So that opened my eyes again, where I was like, yeah, work, work, work. Don't like say yes, learn where you're not good, and then try and fix it. So I went back to writing space or written space. Um, the first script I ever put together, or the first writing I ever put together, was a poem. Um, or public, may I say, public writing, because I've been writing little bits before that. But when I was about 11, I put a poem together called "What Is Love." and I called it a published poem because I thought that was the only poetry you were allowed to do. If I had known that I could have done original, I would have called it original. But I used my uncle's name by Bongo Old. He's late now. Um, and I got a really nice stamp of approval from the Allied Arts Institution in Zimbabwe, where it was my first distinction. Um, and that was the learning factor there was sometimes just don't be scared to put stuff out and to try stuff because again, you don't know what you're good at until you're in that space where somebody goes, oh yeah, you're actually quite good at that. So going public fast in that space, this is an 11, and this is me only in retrospect, by the way. It kind of showed me what I was good at and made me lean into that versus me writing this poem and not actually putting it out because I'm fearful of the outcome, or what are people gonna say. So yeah, putting stuff out quick and getting that feedback, it might not be great feedback, but you can always learn from that and you can move forward. So that's another lesson that I learned in that space. Video, video. The thing I learned from video was a note that was shared with me by Lawrence Goff, who was the director on Skins and a bunch of other big UK things. He was my mentor during the our course in Manchester, which was just a blessing, I guess. God's timing, everything lined up. And he talked about working with what you have. And he shared a story about this thing called hamster sex. What do you mean? So it's like he explained the story where they didn't have access to a lot of stuff. They didn't have lots of gear, couldn't afford it, but they had to come up with a concept, like a short film, about the internet. And it was meant to be like an ad of some sort. And the script was very simple. Kid comes downstairs and asks his mom, what sex is my hamster? You know, and is it a girl or a boy? And mom goes, I don't know. I'm gonna ask your father. So he goes, his father's working, because mom wasn't like doing something, and then father's like working outside or something. Asks, father says, I don't know. Just go and Google it. And then the kid goes and Googles hamster sex, and basically a porn site pops up, some sort of site pops up that's not a good site. And it was about the internet and how the internet is very dangerous and how you should make sure that the access you give your kids to that internet, is curated. But they shot that, he said, on phones. It wasn't something that they had a budget for. They had a couple of phones that had cameras and they shot. I'm doing this web thing on my laptop because that's what I got access to. You might have an iPhone, you might have or an Android phone, but start creating as quickly as you can and getting stuff out there because you only get better by doing, and people can only see what you've done. They can't see what's in your head. So another thing that I learned is to stop waiting around for the perfect moment for things to take place and just utilize the resources that you have. So these are some of the mistakes I've made or come across that have really helped me move forward as a creative. Um, and I don't want to keep this live too long because I know people probably want to use the room and I need to finish folding clothes. But let's just move on swiftly and see what else we can touch base on to help people understand. I know I put a little bit of a script out. Simple ways to test if your ideas can actually pay. So I've kind of already started touching on that. And yeah, it's so in business, it's called the riskiest assumption test. What is the riskiest assumption you've made? And then how do you test it? um, and for a testing space, the, each idea is different and each person's situation is different. Might seem like a lot of money for some, might not be a lot of money for others, but no money is usually the best, like if you like makes you more innovative in most cases, usually the best way to go in a lot of situations. So instead of you trying to build an application that services people that are going through hard times in divorce. It's like start a group and see if you can get people on the group and then work out what the privacy issues are and how many people are actually willing to share. And if that, or like maybe it's a WhatsApp group, or maybe it's just a post that goes out that directs people to your WhatsApp or to a page and they sign up to a newsletter, you know. But you don't need to start with the application. You need to start with the problem and see if the problem is an actual problem or if it's just a problem that you think is a problem. Because there's a lot of ideas, but again, you need to test the ideas and see what the market, or if you have access to the market that you're trying to serve. So yeah, I think it's like think of how you can go to market instead of writing a full album. You got a concept for it. Go ahead, put a song down, a demo, put it out on SoundCloud and on TikTok. You've got access to the world, so use it and see where that takes you. Do people heavily resonate with what you've put out? And if not, why? Us doing these type of videos is also a way of gauging and seeing whether artists and creatives and entrepreneurs and people are interested in this business content. Because I've invested so much time already in it. If you were to ask me, I'm like, at least I'm able to utilize it in my consultancy work. But at the same time, I'm heavily invested in trying to build this new route and empower artists. I've managed to accumulate a group full of artists, but are the artists active? Not as active as they should be. So do they see it as a problem? Probably not. So that's a behavioral problem that now I have to try and address. Do I try and address it myself, or do I again put content out in a cheaper format until I find the right tribe that's interested in what I'm doing, and then I can amplify. So again, a lot of mistakes have been made on my behalf, but at the same time, a lot of learning has occurred. So I wouldn't say that it's a loss. It's just a way of me being able to say I've tested it and this is my outcome. Like this is what happened for me. It might not happen for you, but the likelihood of it happening is high. Not because it's only happened to me, but because it's happened to so and so and so and so and so and so. So I hope that this unstoppable, underrated to unstoppable movement takes off and you want to be part of it. And I hope that it helps a number of you get ahead of yourselves because that's the whole point of it. That's the objective. But for now, this is me saying thank you for tuning in. And yeah, stay blessed. Let's try and do this more often. And tell me in the comments what you guys would like to hear more of and what you'd like to see more of. But I'm going to try and go live a lot more in the next coming weeks to just share a little bit more about how you can move forward and some of the ups, downs, highs, lows, whatever you want to call it, from my career and where I think you guys could actually win a lot quicker than I did. My name's Jerome. Thank you for clicking on my pages. Stay blessed and speak soon.